Audionovelas 2.0, Jiji.
In a city near the Forbidden Forest, a king receives an urgent message. The king, surprised by the sudden change of one of his commerce subordinates, asks, "Quickly tell me the message." The subordinate, still agitated and with gasping for breath, explains the situation to the king. "His Majesty, the damned are acting in an irregular manner, they seem to be interacting with something." Note: the damned are living beings that have received or have marked themselves with the mark of the damned for different reasons. Among the most common reasons are those beings that have committed aberrant acts and it has been decided that they will be marked with the mark. Others, out of sheer greed or stupidity, have marked themselves and tried to commit crimes without success, and many others. The worried king heads towards the depths of the castle together with his best warriors, the elite of the elite. A place so secret and deep that it would be compared to hell itself. The number of people who can enter the place is so limited that it can be counted between 20 to 100 people in each kingdom. The king, as he approaches Oblivion, note: it has that name because the living beings that are in that place cannot die. Each moment is agony and suffering until their appointed time arrives and they finally die. There is no salvation for those who are in that place, and for such reason it is better to forget about them. As the king approaches Oblivion, he seems slightly worried, because nothing is heard compared to what is usual, which are cries of pain, suffering, prayers, and screams. After 10 minutes, when the king arrived at the place, he was frozen by the situation. He could not believe what his eyes could see. The king was seeing more than 100 types of different races. Their states were the same as always, looking like malnourished beings and planted in the same place as always. Note says planted, but they are not planted like a tree. The fact is that they were always in the same place without moving on their own, except of the movements of pain and regular sufferings. They were planted, but unlike always, they were all sitting on their knees, leaning their bodies forward and prostrating their heads on the ground. One of the guards commented, "It's as if they were begging for something." Then they managed to see a person, or what a person was, according to the records of the kingdom. He seemed to be looking at something at a distance of about 6 meters. It seemed that he was talking to something. And suddenly she began to cry and hit her head to the ground when taking the pose of the others. The blow seemed to have been with all her strength, but before the pain her body seemed full of gratitude and happiness. Then another one got up, and when he spoke to nothing for 2 minutes the same thing happened, and this was repeated 3 more times. The king and his guards could not do anything and did not understand what was happening. A guard commented, "This has never happened in history since." Quickly the guard covers his mouth and all the damned began to tremble in fear. 5 seconds later they calmed down again, and after one last person, in this case one of my human, finished speaking, they all got up and seemed like they were celebrating, and some tried to dance with joy. After 5 minutes of celebrating everyone returned to their previous state, but this time they repeated with joy, 15 years, freedom, praise his son. We will finally have mercy. Praise be, and they kept repeating that same phrase for hours. The king returned and set up an emergency meeting with all the greatest leaders of the kingdom and their most brilliant advisors to try to explain this unique and unknown situation. Hours later at the emergency meeting. In the meeting room was the king and 20 other people. They were having a heated conversation. They shouted, "What are you saying? That is impossible, that we are, like a baby, 15 years old, that it will happen in 15 years. After 30 minutes of discussion, a shadow appeared in front of them. Frightened, they quickly called the guards, and no one responded to their calls. They began to shout loudly, "Guards, guards!" They still did not respond to their orders. Then the shadow raised its hand to the size of his shoulder and began to lower it very slowly. All the representatives and leaders of the meeting began to feel how their bodies were getting heavier and heavier. When they were about to panic, the king, sensing what the thing wanted, ordered them firmly, "Silence, everyone shut up and come back to their seats." They all obeyed their king, and when they all sat down, the pressure they felt dissipated as if it had never existed and they could breathe calmly. Then the thing approached the table and the king with some fear asked, Who are you?" The thing replied, unlike its appearance, its voice was friendly and did not convey any feeling of hostility. "It doesn't matter who or what I am, it only matters what I came to say. The king asked again, what do you mean, please give us details. Of course, I have come to explain the situation of the living beings that you call the damned and something else. Everyone pays their full attention. Well, first of all, simply because I am in a good mood, I have decided that I will shorten your punishments as a show of gratitude to the world for bringing my child back to me. The vast majority couldn't hear the last sentence, because they froze when they heard it. I've decided to shorten their punishments. Because there is only one existence in the world capable of modifying the punishment of the damned, and it is the same creator of the same curse. Most of them, understanding that, turned pale, knowing that the existence that is in front of them, is an existence feared by the gods themselves and is in front of themselves. They all thought the same thing, no matter what they ask for, we have to give it to them. Give. Hello, hello, are you listening to me? Everyone stopped thinking and answered as quickly as they could, yes, and the king asked him to continue with his explanation. Well, as I said before, I am in a good state of mind, and that is why I have decided that those who have been punished for more than 200 years will be able to rest in peace in 15 years. Except for a few who worked for me. That's why you don't have to fear anything, since the curse will remain the same, they will not become monsters or resurrect. Well, that was all, we'll see each other again. 5 seconds when he left, they started screaming it was him, H-A-A-A-A-A-A-A, H-A-A-A-A-A-A-A, it's the end, hey. The guards, hearing the sudden screams, rushed in, and found them all in a state of panic. It took them 30 minutes to calm them down, and the meeting resumed.